Lol, glitch central here. Let's try it again. I blame the weather. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Interesting Modelling Co. Midweek Live. Slight difference tonight because I'm Johnny No Mates tonight. I'm literally flying solo. So what I thought we'd do is we'd do a quick recap on the ICM Laffley and where I am with the painting of this so far, and also talk about what went wrong. And we'll do a little bit of live painting tonight, and also kind of talk about the paints, the other paints I'm using, because we've got some different paints we're using. So let's start. To quote Dylan Thomas, we'll begin at the beginning. And I started painting this Laffley with these paints. These are ICM's acrylics. They're a water-based acrylic or a vinyl acrylic, whatever we want to call them. One reason or another, I just didn't get on with them. Now, I'm not saying they're a bad paint. They're just not the paint for me. I'm used to working with Vallejo. I'm used to working with things like Tamiya, AK Real Color, Mr. Color, Gunzi. Just trying to think what else is out there. The Tamiya lacquers, all those paints, and I get on fine with them. I just didn't get on with these, and I don't know why. I will at some stage get some of their own thinner, and I will do some tests and everything to see whether it was me or whether it was them. But for one reason or another, I wasn't happy with the finish. It just didn't. I didn't have any confidence with it, and in the end, I just stripped the paint and started again. I wasn't confident that the paint was particularly sticking very well, especially by the way it kept scuffing off the corners and everything. Camera's no surprise that actually stripping it was very easy, just a quick thing of oven cleaner, and it all came off pretty much. So, yeah, I'd like to know why I don't get on with these, but we'll just have to come back to that in the future. So, what did I use instead? Well, I went and grabbed a bottle of the SMS. This was their forest green, which looks to be a reasonable kind of facsimile for the color I wanted. Now, these are lacquers, and they are considerably more aggressive than the ICM paints, but they work. They do a job. They are absolutely first class when it comes to spraying. And in fact, what I did was I gave this an overall coat of their dark green, and this went down literally in a few minutes. It took a few minutes just to get a nice even coverage of paint on this. And then once that had cured, I left it to cure overnight just to be on the safe side, but it's pretty much touch dry within a few minutes rather. Then I mixed up this grotty color, which is a mixture of Tamiya red brown and their flat black rather, and watered that down, thinned that down to a fairly thin consistency. And then I just went over this. Oops, Daisy, come on, camera, focus. I then went over this and just randomly picked out panels, shaded corners. You can see how random it is. Then last night I went back over it again with the forest green again, just in a very, very thin coat, almost like a filter, knocking it back. Now, I'm not convinced that is still sufficiently tamed for my liking. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to load the airbrush up, and we're going to go in there, and we are just going to carry on knocking these colors back until there is a color shift, but you can barely see it. So we'll get on with that. I just need to adjust a few things on the camera here for a second. So bear with. That's better. Let's say hello to everybody who's out there. Say hello to Mike Reeves. Well, Mike, I did ask you if you wanted to come on tonight, but you never came back to me. So nothing like shaming your friends live on the internet. No, I think Mike's very, very busy at the moment, so no problem whatsoever. So hello, Dave Swindle. Hello, Dave Fleming. Hello, Dougal McWogan. Hello, Dan. Hello, Mike Reeves, the missing guest. Hello, Paul Milligan, Anthony Bird, Greg Woodbridge, Darren McGuinness, Ian Goldstraw, Jim Aldercott, Tony Sturridge, Mike Williams, Jose TXedo, Bill Clark, John Patrick Huston. So, enough of the gabble. Let's get on with some painting. So, what am I going to be thinning this with is just some Tamiya lacquer thinner, and this is the retarder type. So, nothing, whoops daisy, nothing particularly special about that. And I'll be using my beloved cheapo Fender FE180, which, in order to try and keep this within budget limits, we're going to use a cheapo airbrush. And that's working beautifully. I will apologise tonight for extraneous noises, but it is Storm Dudley is absolutely blowing a hoolie out there tonight, and it's going to get progressively worse. So nothing like naming a storm front after the town or the parish that you were born in. But there we go. So what I'm going to do is I've put a little bit of thinner in the colour cup here, just a tiny amount of thinner in there, just to give the airbrush a quick blast through. And into that, I'm going to add a couple of drops of this SMS Forest Green, and I literally mean a couple of drops, because what I want to create is almost a translucent filter. It does help if you get it into the airbrush cup. So that is probably enough, that. And we immediately put the lid back on the paint with one hand. It's a skill. So I hate having a dirty airbrush. And we'll just get a bit of kitchen towel. See how. Yeah, that's fine. It's really quite thin, but that's what I want. So we've got where we've got this shading I did over the top deck there is I'm just going to go in with this and just bit by bit by bit. Like I say, this is really heavily thin, so the thinner is flashing off. The pressure is dialed right down. So I think we're down to about 12 psi or something. So it's going down very, very, very gently. But I'm letting the thinner do the heavy lifting here, because if I am a little bit heavy-handed, it's not going to suddenly obliterate the underlying shading. So it very much is. See, I was a bit heavy-handed there, but it very much is a case of building this up. You're doing it slowly so that you're getting a very gradual diminishing of that underlying shading. You're probably thinking, well, why did you bother shading it if you're kind of going back to try and get rid of it? The plan is that you're doing it so that there is a suggestion of shading going on there, but it's almost subliminal. You know, you can see it, but you can't see it. So, and this technique, I know people talk about pre-shading, they talk about post-shading. This technique of applying a base color, then putting a shading color down on top of that, and then going in and kind of putting in a blend coat of the original color. That's something I've been doing for over 30 years now. I think I probably started doing it around about 1990, 89, 90. I saw somebody do something similar in Fine Scale Modeler, and in it I just thought, well, that produces a nice effect. Francois Verlinden pretty much did the same. So it's really not a new technique. And I know people dress it up with all kinds of names: pre-shading, post-shading, force shading, zenithal shading. I just call it shading. So what we've done there is we're just trying to knock back that shading in the wells there, but I don't want to get rid of all of that, because I do like that kind of, I do like some of the grubbiness. It looks a little bit more extreme on the camera because of the way it's kind of coping with the lighting levels here. In fact, what we will do is we'll move the light back a bit. It's probably blowing the camera sensor out a bit. So I don't want to get rid of it completely, because there will be other kind of weathering effects going on top of it. But I do, like I say, I want to diminish it a little bit. But I've got to say, the relative ease of using these SMS paints and just being able to put down nice color, nice solid colors, or putting glazes like I'm doing here, the complete antithesis to the problems I was encountering with these ICM paints. But it's it's apples and oranges. These are a completely different type of paint, and I'm just used to working with these types of paint. So you can go in quite heavy, but because it is almost like a glaze, it will take some of that shadowing back, but not too much. I mean, this is almost kind of like 75% thinner, 25% paint. You're probably watching this and thinking, well, you seem to be spending a lot of time doing something. Nothing's happening. It is happening, but it's as I say, it's gradual. You are just trying to kind of like knock everything back in very subtle phases, rather than kind of trying to cover it with like a thick opaque coat of paint. But this mix of Tamiya red brown and black, it does produce a rather lovely kind of, I wouldn't call it neutral, but it is quite it's a color that complements grays, it complements greens, it complements kind of sandy colors. It's almost the perfect kind of neutral shading color. Rather than using black, it just, I think it just works better. In fact, I can still see some kind of little bits of texture from that ICM paint, where I managed to get rid of most of it, but I'm not going to worry about that. Really, I'm not going to worry about that. Okie dokie. Right, what we're going to do now is, we'll put some more paint in there for a start. But what we're going to do now is something a little bit mad. And I'm going to just put a bit more of that Tamiya lacquer thinner in there. I'm also spraying at such low pressures. I've got the window open in the workshop here, but I've got such low pressures that I can barely smell the paint. It's not like there's great big kind of clouds of overspray appearing everywhere. Were I to be like I did the other night when I was spraying the body, yeah, I had a mask on and I put the extractor fan on in the spray booth here. But for little jobs like this, it's the risk is minimal. But obviously, you know, I've still got the window open. I still got plenty of ventilation in here. So, but as I say, we're spraying such tiny amounts of paint. Now, what we're going to do is SMS German sand yellow. I'm going to drop some of that in there just to give me a lighter color. Just clean my spatula off. And the agitator you can hear inside that bottle is that's a BB I've dropped in there, so it doesn't come with the paint. So I'm just going to touch that to the side so I can get. I think I'll do it. Let's just mix that up a bit in there. Blast it through so that we get a good amount. Ouch, it's a bit raspy. That's better. And again, it's just a case of gently going over the surface and just picking some areas to just knock that shading back a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. And because we've got a slightly lighter color now, it's also going to lighten everything up just a touch. Scale color, if you like. That's interesting. I got a mark just in there. I don't know what's caused it, but we'll keep an eye on that. What did you do on Wednesday night? I literally went on the internet and watched paint dry. Yep. Just another thing is you might notice that I'm kind of like spraying in a pattern like this because it does give me a little bit of kind of like an up and down up and down pattern, which does aid that kind of streaking effect to a minor degree, but it does, it all kind of like, every little helps. Actually, I think that's pretty much going to be it. I'm going to leave, you can see there in the footwell, I'm leaving that really kind of grimy in there because, speaking from experience as somebody who had to clean his car carpets today, because it's had about 2 weeks of muddy boots in it, that yeah, they do get a little bit on the grimy side. What I'm going to do is just those panels there. Oops, Daisy, a little bit heavy there, but that doesn't matter. I think that's kind of almost there for that, for this particular phase of things. Just having a look, because this will have washes and other things applied to it, speckling. Actually, I'm going to go in there just on that back wall. That is a bit too, it's a little bit too heavy for my liking. So we're just going to go in there and lighten that up a bit. That's better. That's a little bit better. Now, I'm really bothered by what's going on there. There's a mark on the paint, and I'd like to know what's caused that mark. It's a bit weird. It's not kind of like a bit too heavy with the thinner. It's there's some kind of mark there. But what I'm going to do is a bit of Scotch-Brite. You're probably thinking this is mad. You're going to attack the paint with some Scotch-Brite when you've just been spraying on it. Well, that's the beauty of using lacquers, is that you can. You can go in there. If I was doing this with that ICM paint, it would have just been flaking off, scraping off rather, as soon as I was doing this. But the beauty of lacquers, like I say, we just had lacquer thinner on there, and yet it's now whatever that mark was, it's gone. Bizarre. I think on the sides here, I'm also just going to go in there and just give it a little bit of a polish. But I think this speaks volumes for how hardy lacquer paints are, but also these SMS paints from Australia. I mean, they really are as tough as boots. The only thing issue I have with the SMS paints, and I'm sure the guys at SMS won't mind me saying this, is just their range. They don't have some of the kind of camouflage colors, a lot of camouflage colors like some of the RAF stuff. It's sometimes it's a bit generic, and I would like to have more kind of specific colors. But other than that, that's a minor quibble. Now, trust me, if I'd have been trying to do this with the ICM paint over the weekend, it would have just been rubbing off. So that, do you know what? That doesn't look, I like the look of that. It probably looks a bit heavy in on the video here, but in the real life, that's not too bad. I quite like that. and it's certainly kind of broken up that very kind of like flat green finish. So what we might do is I'm going to get rid of all the paint out of the airbrush cup. And actually, we'll have a quick sip of barley cup. Other hot beverages are available. I'll just play catch up with the Mike Williams says, careful with that airbrush without the colour lid on. Yes, trust me, Mike, I do know. We've got James Ray. I'm sure Jose can answer your question, James. Peter Berg says hands-on demos are way better than 1 hour unboxing videos. Well, I think they both have their place, Peter. But I do take your point, and we do try and do some demos on this nonsense that we do. We're also working on some pre-record videos as well. So how exciting! More modelling videos on YouTube. It's probably what people will say when we announce ours, but. Right, what I'm doing is I'm just mixed a little bit of this dark yellow into the airbrush cup, and I'm also going to take the protective cap off the brush so I can have a bit more control. She's a bit raspy tonight, and I don't know why. But okay, what I'm now going to do is flip it upside down, and oops, that's why we flip it upside down, so we can test the mix of paint. As you can see there, I've just blurted some out full volume. I'm just seeing how strong this sand mix is that I've just put in there, and the answer to that is it's very weak to the point of absolutely indistinguishable. So I'm just going to add a bit more. That's probably a bit too thin. That's probably a bit too much, but all right, let's have another go. That's better. So I'm just going to that's more like it. Now this underside is going to get splashed with mud and spatter and grime and Lord knows what. And it's also the underside of the vehicle. I mean, on tanks, my tank models, the underside is usually the underside is usually the bit where I actually kind of try out paint mixes and things. So I tend to be not very precious about my tank models on the undersides, but on vehicles, because you have all that lovely chassis that, technically speaking, you can see, I tend to be a little bit more careful and add a bit more care to the paintwork. But you can also still use it as an area to test things on. So here I'm just seeing Now, I'm going to use the Mac valve on this fender. I'm just going to use the Mac valve to dial the pressure down a bit. I'm also going to use the needle limiter on the end here, which for a 25 quid airbrush, its performance belies its ridiculously stupid price. It's been a bit temperamental tonight, actually. I think we just need to thin the paint out a bit more. I use old plastic spoons to test on. Yes, I've got plastic spoons here, but I tend to keep them in the picnic basket for some bizarre reason. IGM, did you use the Fender airbrush? Did lack of powers and any adverse effect on the seals? Simon, not at the moment, because this is my Fender FE 180, and thus far, no, I've not had any kind of nothing adverse happen to the seals on this one. In fact, I keep using this Fender. Really, kind of like, you know, I'm almost kind of testing it to the point where to see when it will stop working. But this and the other one just continue to perform, and I've had this for over 6 months now, and it still does a job, which is, you know, not bad for a 25 quid airbrush. Whoops, a bit heavy there, but never mind. This is all on the underside, so I'm not going to worry about it. So what I'm going to do now is just testing that mix. Put the limiter in place because so I can just press down and pull back and not have. So what I'm going to do now is just on the undersides here is just introduce a little bit of dust kicking up. You can see that. You probably can't. The camera can't deal with this tonight, but it's just kicking up a nice kind of very tiny amount of kind of like a just a bit of a dust layer at the bottom here. Trying to get the camera angle right there. Yes, you can just see it there. It's just literally really tiny amount on the bottom. It's almost kind of like a highlight on the edge there. But the idea is just to kind of suggest that kind of dust kicking up on the underside of the vehicle without having it kind of too obvious. But again, this is the beauty of using paints like these, is that you can linger over the surface as you're applying the effect, and you're not worrying too much about it suddenly, the paint suddenly like spidering, or pushing paint around the surface, which was what I was getting with the ICM paint over the weekend. You can literally hold your nerve with this paint, see who blinks first. In fact, we've just got to open the nozzle up a bit more. Oops, a bit heavier, but that's... I don't know if you can see that. You can just see it on the back there. It really is. It's just a very faint suggestion of dust coming up off the bottom there. And we'll just do it on here as well. This will be augmented with the speckling, as Martin Kovac would call it. But I just want to keep it really, really quite subtle. I had to put my car through the car wash the other day. How bourgeois! And yeah, it's quite interesting looking at your own car to see how mud and dirt and stuff and grime can accumulate. I don't know what we've had in the weather here recently, but the back end of mine was just absolutely, really kind of covered in like such a thick film of dirt. And this is only after a couple of days that I literally had to go out there with a cloth and clean the number plate because I couldn't actually read the number plate. So yeah, so but it's how grime builds up in some areas and kind of like other areas are relatively clean, and how it kind of kicks up and kind of splashes and everything. But I'm quite liking the look of that. Now, what I am going to do also, whilst I've got this mix in the airbrush, is I'm going to go in here and just kind of pick out some areas with a little bit of just lighten them up a bit. Only a little bit. In fact, I was probably going to look a bit too much there, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. And I am just being a little bit random here, just to kind of carry on trying to break up that kind of uniform surface color. Now, I mustn't forget, I've got here the engine cover, which I folded over, which will be posed open so that we can see the magnificent engine that ICM give you. And what we need to do is, he's desperately looking for masking tape. He's got 100 million spools of it here, but he can't find one right at the moment. So what we'll do is we just need to make a temporary mask. So that'll do. Marvelous. All that masking tape, can't find any to hand, but that's all we need to do is just create a mask there, because that's the bottom of the engine cover, which will pick up the dirt as on the other side. And voila, that's fine. That's all I needed to do. I also did on the wheel hubs, I don't know if you can see this or not, is they were actually, the other night I shaded them with the sand color. Then I've gone in there, gone over the hubs with the dark green again, just to kind of maintain a bit of contrast again. Once I actually go into these wheels with a dark wash, it's going to contrast rather nicely with the fact that the hubs are a kind of slightly dusty color. I tried it out on my Tamiya Panzer 38 earlier last year, or the year before last, and I liked the effect it gave. So it's a kind of trick. I've stolen it off of somebody. I've stolen everything off of somebody at some stage. But it just, in order to get the effect you're after, sometimes you actually have to kind of go kind of the wrong way in order to get the right effect. So I think that's it for the sand. I'm just going to get rid of the excess, put that back in the bottle. But we haven't finished with it entirely, because what's left in the airbrush, I'm going to add a bit more green to it, so that I've got like a paler yellow tint. And I'm going to add that to it, and then we're going to go over and just pick a couple more areas just to put another kind of glaze filter coat. That's all right, that's fine. And we'll thin that considerably, because we want to let the thinner do the heavy lifting for us. Just blast it through. There we go. You can see it's like it's a paler version of our base color. But it's also considerably thinner. In fact, if I, oops, daisy, I'll show you here, you can see how thin it is. For the way it kind of, like, if you really go at it, it will start to run, but that's what you want. You want it just to be a little bit, as I say, you want the thinner to be doing the heavy lifting for you. So this is almost translucent, this this filter color shade. I just want to blend that bit there and that bit. Now at this stage, I could, if I wanted to be clever, which is always a dangerous move, I could deploy my texture masks, if I can find them. They're in here somewhere. Or maybe not. What have I done with my texture masks? You can tell I really prepped for tonight. Honestly. It's like amateur hour. Perhaps I haven't got my texture masks here at the moment. Oh, there we go. There is a texture. There we go. There's a little one. I picked this set up from through Model Sense, and they were £4 quid rather. So this is perfect because it's a nice little set. And I don't think I've even used this. I have used it. So what you can do with these is, as you can see here, is they can be so subtle that they do take a little bit of working up to get a discernible effect. Yeah, you can just see on the back there, but they are good for adding a little bit of variety to the finish. So I'm just going to go in there with I mean, that's gone down, but I've had to turn it to the light to see the effect, and also keep the texture masks, keep turning them so that you're not getting the same pattern repeating itself. Yeah, these are great, but like I say, the effects can be very, very subtle, and that is. Obviously, I get it on the camera. Honestly, you can't see it on the camera. I can see it, just about see it on the model. But I do love texture masks. They are great. So I'm just going to go over the back here with this one, just to break that up a bit, which it has done. So I think that's pretty much it for this. Simon Lewis says, does the SMS paint need to be thin? Sorry, that's what I asked before. Not really. For basic painting, Simon, no. I managed to get it to work without thinning it. But when I'm doing kind of like fine line work, or if I'm going in and trying to do kind of shading or stuff, I will thin it because I like it to be a little bit more translucent. And I also like the, as I say, I like to let the paint thinner do the hard work for me. So while I'm doing this at the moment, this is, like I say, this is about 70% paint, 70% thinner, 30% paint, and it's when you're putting the paint down, it's taking a while for it to actually build up a kind of discernible coat. But it's better to do that than to suddenly go in there and be trying to apply thick layers, which is, I think sometimes that's the thing people do when they're doing shading, is the layer they're putting over the top is far too opaque, and you get like a weird kind of shading effect. I'm not criticizing it. To my eye, it always looks a bit strange. And you do get that. You get, I think sometimes, to some extent, you get too much contrast. I think when you're applying it in thinner layers, you get a little bit more subtlety, but its beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And one person's kind of like nice weathered finish to somebody else can be, they can say, oh, it's a bit overdone. And I know, watching Martin Kovac's recent video with that resin tank, that 3D printed tank, he said that he was going for something a lot more forced, just to see whether he liked it or not. I thought it looked brilliant, but I think sometimes you just got to go out on a limb, and if a model doesn't, it's not exactly how you wanted it to turn out, it's still a learning experience. And every day is a school day in this hobby. or in my case, a detention. But I see, I've just noticed those shadows. Oops, got the shadows just in the top edge of there. They're a bit too heavy. I don't like them. So I'm going in there with that kind of highlight color, and that just knocks it back a bit. So it's, yeah, compared to what we started with, this is now starting to look a bit more subtle. I do want to keep the forcefulness of the shading a little bit there, just as an experiment, just to see what it looks like when I actually start knocking it back. But as I say, every day's a school day. You just, you know, go into this and try new things. And so let's just blast this remnant out of the airbrush a second. Just put the protective cap back on. And I think the last thing we will do for tonight is we'll probably paint the tires, kick the tires and light the fires, and we'll do the dashboard at the same time. Now, despite the fact that the tires in this kit are rubber, and you'd think, well, that's obviously the perfect material to you know, to use for rubber tires is actual rubber. I always find they look a bit meh. So what we've done is we've given them a coat of Tamiya fine grey primer, like so. And then what we'll do is we'll mount them onto a closed peg like so. Perfect. And then we'll give them a, actually I might paint them with my, how much of my dirty red brown do I have left? Enough to paint some tires? I think so. Yeah, I think we've got enough paint there to paint some tires. So in fact, let's just blast that through. Oh, that's lovely. We need to do the dashboard. And the dashboard needs to be a kind of dark colour. So I think the dashboard, from what I could tell, it looked like it was made of like a Bakelite material. I'm probably horrifically wrong in that regard, but this produces a nice effect. Oh, let's get there. I could do with thinning a bit more. So whilst we're at it, we'll do the right, here we go, a tire. So this is the beauty of, and this is Tamiya acrylics mixed together, but it's mixed with the lacquer thinner. But again, this is the beauty of this kind of paint, is you don't have to muck around. You can just get in there and absolutely blast it on, and the thinner flashes off so quickly. I find you can't do this with water-based acrylics because they reach a certain point and then they start kind of hanging around on the surface, and you find yourself pushing paint around on the surface. Whereas with this, because you've got an aggressive solvent that evaporates almost instantaneously on the surface, it's let's just actually, I think we can thin that a bit more. Goodness me, this is an overly thick mix. That'll do, and then just pinch that, and off it pops. So we'll do this one as well. So again, you see how wet we're applying this. It's, like I say, you don't have to be shy when you're working with these kind of paints. So we'll just pop that one off. On the next. Whoops. Mike's right. I should have put the lid on that. Oh. Luckily, I didn't land on anything crucial. Safety first, kids. I've done that before. I've just suddenly kind of like shook the airbrush and paint has shot out the top of the cup. And I should put the lid on. Oh, I know people are going to have kittens now because I haven't put the lid on. So I've dropped the lid on the floor. Let's not worry about that. Oops. In fact, I'm just going to pick that one up. See, absolutely bone dry. What I'm going to do is just go in there and make sure I hit the inside of the rims. What I will do is I'll actually go around those rims with some of that same sand color, that the same German yellow that we used on the this dust on the chassis. And I'm just going to, I will not tonight, but I'll do this at a later stage, is go in there and put a little bit of that sand around the inside of these rims as an accumulation of dust and stuff. Is that a technical term? Yeah, dust and stuff. finally, this one. Try and get it on camera, JM. And what we'll also do is, bear with me for a second. Let's just pop that on there. We'll also do we'll get the seats done at the same time because they need to be black. And then we can pick out the seat frames with some dark green acrylic. Actually, I think the seat frames are black as well. Looking at the photographs I've seen of some Lafleys, is they appear to be everything seems to be black. So, so let's just pop that on there. Let's find the other ones. Oops. Pop. Pop. There's actually a spare in the kit, which, oops, hello, low battery. Oh, right, okay, my MacBook is just telling me it's got a low battery, so let's just, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. We suddenly had an outage there, and the lights went off, and the broadband went off, and we're back. Yeah, so it's very stormy out there. Yeah, sorry about that. We can anybody see me again now? Are we all good? Yeah, we just suddenly had a complete power failure there, but we seem to be okay again. So I'm just waiting to see whether everybody can see me. Connection is unstable. If you're on Wi-Fi, try plugging in your router. No, that's because we're. I'll just wait a few minutes to see if the comments come back in again. And right, we'll carry on. And I'll keep an eye out. But yeah, we just suddenly had a power loss there. I thought it was the battery on the MacBook, but like I say, suddenly the lights went out and it went all dark. So let's get these seats done. Back in the room. Yes, we're back in the room. Thank you, Kat. How exciting. The first time we've done a live broadcast where we've actually had a power cut. Yeah, these seats, I was looking at some photographs of some Laffleys, and the seat, oops, Daisy, the seats seem to be black, kind of black metal kind of supports with kind of black leather back leather cushions. But I think we can. Sorry, the airbrush is being a bit funny at the moment. I think we can suggest that with different painting effects. Probably actually do the seat supports with. Try and get on camera. Do the seat supports with a semi-gloss color, and then really fade the color out on the kind of cushion areas. I'm not kidding. It's absolutely blowing a gale out there at the moment. It's not as ferocious as obviously some of the storms that some of our friends in America get, but compared to the genteel standards of the Southwest, this is quite severe out there tonight. I was in that there Weston-super-Mare this afternoon at the Blitz Tea Rooms, as you may have noticed. And yeah, that was certainly blowing a hoolie on the seafront. Goodness me, we've actually got a longer show tonight than we do with the normal one. So that'll do for that. And we're just going to go in and just pick that instrument panel out with this color. That's fine. Like I say, that's my lovely dirty grime color mix. Oh, I hate having a mucky airbrush. And this is why I'm wearing the latex gloves, is so I can use this lacquer thinner to kind of get in there and make sure that the airbrush itself hasn't got too much spilled paint going all over it. It's amazing how it can actually kind of accumulate. Right, okay, let's get that done, and then let's just get rid of the excess of that. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do is, finally tonight, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I am going to do this. And that is pop a bit more of the sand color back in there. A bit more of the lacquer thinner. That's fine. That's fine for what I need. And that is, I'm just going to go in with these wheels and just touch the middles like so, just to create a bit of a kind of like a dusty film around the inside of the rims. or the inside, yeah, where the on the rim of the tyre where the hub is. Because when we actually get around to putting the separate hubs in, it will create a nice contrast. And also, this is what my tyres look like before we put it through the car wash. And if you haven't tried these SMS paints, by the way, honestly, they are absolutely fantastic. I really, really like them. As I say, the only thing that's stopping me from really going mad and buying up investing huge swathes into them is that they don't have a lot of kind of specific RAF and British colours, which I'm sure they'll add them at some stage. But the colours tend to be a bit more generic. So, you know, you have to find a dark earth and a dark green, which are close enough matches to the RAF colours. But yeah, SMS, if you're watching, yeah, some actual kind of like RAF colours, please. Because they are beautiful paints to work with. They really are. So that'll do. That's that for that. And so I just check my fingers are clean. And the rest of this mixture here, we'll just get rid of it on the underside. So this is part of the vehicle that isn't going to be seen, but we can just randomly break up the overall color. And that's it. That's it. Let's get rid of the rest of the color in there, into the old color pot. Give the needle a quick wipe through, and that'll be pretty much it for tonight. I'll just give it one last blast through with some fresh thinner. Other than that, I find you don't need to kind of strip it down or after use. There we go. Absolutely perfect, he said. Yeah, that's fine. I will give it a strip down clean at some stage, probably at the weekend, but I only ever do that kind of a couple of times a month. And usually when I say a strip down clean, I'm just talking about taking the needle guard off, taking the nozzle off, reaming the nozzle out with like the stiletto reamers that you get, and then just cleaning and lubing the needle, and then just blasting it through with some lacquer thinner. And that's all I've done with this for the last 6 months since I've had it. And it has not let me down. So not bad for a 25 quid airbrush. So let's just pop that back in its station, and I'll play catch up with the comments, and then I'm going to go and do my other show. So that was it for tonight. We'll just do a quick recap on the vehicle itself. Let's just put a bit of fresh down. So yeah, we've gone in there. We've knocked back that kind of shading. You can see where we've just put like some dust effects on the underside of it. That's better. That really shows it. That's much better. And you can see where I was kind of doing the shading the other night. I was kind of doing it in lines from top to bottom. So what I'm creating is almost kind of like streaking effects with the airbrush, which then will be kind of augmented with washes and speckling and other bits and pieces. But other than that, I'm happy with that. It's got some interesting effects going on. It's not going to be to everybody's liking, but you've got to try these things. So that's it. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there with the Laughley. Just a couple of quick bits of housekeeping with the kit is apparently this towing end here and this extraneous seat are for the German one, apparently, of which ICM are doing a release this year. But yeah, that was chopped off the end there, and you can see I've been using my my Ammo of Mig Magma cement, testing that out, which if you didn't see that on the unboxing video, I bought some of this in Antics the other day, and I'm looking forward to trying that out on the Mini Art Tempo, if only because this will show you how wayward you can sometimes be with liquid cement. So nothing like seeing how shoddy your workmanship is with the liquid cement showing up. The only thing I will say about this is, from the tests that I've done, it's not as viscous as the Tamiya Extra Thin, which I do like because that runs in and flashes off so quickly. This is a little bit more ponderous. Still goes off very quickly, but not quite as quickly as the Extra Thin. But I'm all for trying new things. So I'll just play catch up with some of the comments here. Hello. Let's have a look. I must say that Fengler, Jim Aldegott says, I must say the Fengler is a very impressive airbrush. It is. I mean, I've got two. I've got the FE 180 and I've also got the FE 183K. And I genuinely would have thought they would have failed by now. I thought something will wear out. They won't be as good as when I first started using them. Truth be told, they're still working fine. They're still doing a job. Make of that what you will. I would still say invest in a quality airbrush. And I mean, when I say quality airbrush, there's one of my Iwata. That's my Iwata HPCS Eclipse, which I think is pretty much a kind of like a base standard quality airbrush. But I'm trying the thing. I'm going to keep using those fingers until they stop working. When they stop working, I'll tell you they've stopped working. But at the moment, as you can see tonight, still doing a job. Simon Lewis says it's not all tea and cake. I don't know all tea and cake. No, I don't know it all either, which is why I'm always out there trying it. And Downward says, it's interesting how much quicker and easier lacquers appear to be compared to acrylics. What's been done the last hour would take me a week's worth of evenings. Well, that's the thing, Dan. I mean, I do let you peek behind the curtain here. But as you can see, dun, 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 there is a whole world of Vallejo there. There's other paints up there. There's all the model color range there. I've got the Vallejo Air color. I've got some stuff up there. I've got some of the Ammo of MiG stuff. I've got some of the AK airbrush paints. I've tried them all. In fact, the one, let's just try and find it. The one color up here, which I still come back to as being perfect. Whoops, David drops his thing on the floor. There it is. Thing is, oh, hop. Silky skills. Faho surface primer. They're olive drab. Now, I wouldn't use it as a primer because you can't sand it really, but as an undercoat color, I find this beautiful. And this airbrush is, I might actually do a video at some stage where I airbrush this, because I find this not only like I say, a great base color for olive drab, because I like the shade of it, but I find it a really easy color to airbrush. That's sometimes the thing with, I found that with the Vallejo Air, is that some colors go straight into the airbrush. They work off the pat first time beautifully. Other colors, you're struggling with them. But no, honestly, these, well, I say these lacquers, I mean, we've got Tamiya, the Tamiya lacquers. We've got Tamiya acrylics, which, although they're water-based, they're a kind of like a hybrid kind of water-based, lacquer base. We've also got, oh yes, Gunzi. Also, Mr. Color. Where have we got Mr. Color here somewhere? There we go. Mr. Color, which is a lacquer. So you can only thin those with lacquer paints. And we've got blah, 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 blah. We've got the AK Real Colors, which you can thin with lacquer and isopropyl alcohol. All of those you can, you know, like I've been doing tonight, you can really push them, and they don't, you know, they don't yield. So you can really kind of apply colors and keep pushing the colors and keep pushing and pushing. But with water-based acrylics, as I say, because they don't have a solvent which evaporates quickly, they go on, and once they go on, you've got to wait for them to take their sweet time in drying before you can start putting any other colors on there. Otherwise, it goes on, and then it's wet paint on wet paint, and you're just pushing wet paint around on the surface, which is what I found with those ICM paints. Jim Altegott says, please do a Vallejo demonstration. I will do, Jim. I'm just trying to have a think, and I'm not built for that, so bear with me. What have I got coming up that I could paint in olive drab? We will do. I will do. I'm sure I've got something that I can paint with olive drab, and I will show you that Vallejo olive drab primer. Primer they call it, but anyway. But yeah, I hope that's, like I say, sorry I haven't got a regular show tonight, and this one's massively overrun. Hey ho, so much better without the other two, honestly. But that's between us. But yeah, this ICM Lafley, apart from the hiccup with their own paint, their own brand paint, I am just massively enjoying this kit. In fact, now we've got to this. Now we've got it to this kind of level. I'm enjoying it even more because I can see the finish line, which is exciting. And once I get to the finish line, it means I can start building that. So exciting times to be a modeler, isn't it? So on that note, just to say thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight, power cuts and all. Do appreciate it. We'll probably keep this one up for a few days, and then we'll just get rid of it because it's not terrific. So you've watched. If you saw it live, you saw it live. We'll hopefully be back on Sunday with the news program, and we've got some things to talk about. The Zvezda SU-25 for a start, and some other kits that have been announced this week. I'm just reading Brian's comment there. Bet you the other one is watching whilst working his CNC. I hope that's not a metaphor. Anyway, on that note, just as always, to say thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, eat cake, more importantly, and we'll be back on Sunday, and we'll be putting up updates on this Laughley on the page as well. So until then, see you later.